Dr. Basu, thank you so much for taking our time to speak with BW Wellbeing World.
It's my pleasure.
Dr. Basu, when we talking about yoga, we understand the benefits of yoga for every human being. But women are a little different. They are a little different because they go through two phases in life which a man does not go through. One is menstruation, second is menopause. How do you think yoga can play a role in managing these two phases of a woman?
I think you've asked a very, very pertinent and relevant question, especially in the modern day and age. But I will have to go back a little. We have to understand the physiology of a woman's hormonal cycle, her life cycle, as well as her day-to-day life. Now, if we look at it, that when there is a young girl growing, reaches adolescence, there are hormones which begin to change, which happens also with men, but I mean with women, we are talking about women, so I'll limit myself to that. So the hormonal changes begin to, and they do not start, suddenly overnight. They sort of begin to change over pulses. Most of them begin to secrete certain hormones from the brain, which are released mostly at night, and then they cause the changes in the ovaries, the reproductive organs, and they cause changes in the woman's body. Now, these hormonal changes, the wonderful thing is you realize that these changes suddenly then lead to the woman developing into the girl developing into a woman. And yet, in her each cycle, she has this, the hormonal changes occurring in each cycle, the fluctuations.
Right.
And she copes with all of them. Now, what happens is that the hypothalamus and the pituitary, etc., which control they are all located in the brain. And there are, as it was being explained earlier, that these are all interlinked. You see, the nerves, the brain, the hormonal glands, they are not working in silos or in isolation. They are all interlinked with each other. So when you see that anybody who's developing and going into adolescence, it's not only the physical changes which occur, there are a lot of emotional, psychological changes which accompany the same.
Right.
In the same way that when there is a menstrual cycle also, there are changes in the woman's, same behavior through the cycle also.
Correct.
So you were asking about menopause, and the other I think was
menstruation.
Now what happens is that the pituitary is the gland which controls the hormones, the master gland. And it has the capacity, it sends out what we call releasing hormones. And it's like, I would like to compare it to anybody else from anything else, he is like the master conductor of a symphony. So the symphony, for the hormones to play in tandem and to create a music of well-being within the woman's body, this master has, does the job. You can see them, they say, okay, you play this music and you play this music. Similarly, that master gland does the same with the human body.
Right.
So it says that, okay, now it's your turn to secrete this hormone. When it reaches a certain level, then it sends a feedback and it stops that hormone from secreting. It secretes the next follow-on hormone. तो अगर दो चीज़ें हम बहुत यूज़ करते हैं लोगों को समझाने में, जनरल पब्लिक को, कि हमारी बॉडी और हार्मोन्स कैसे काम करते हैं. एक तो हो गया, मैंने बताया आपको कि मास्टर कंडक्टर लाइंग इन द ब्रेन एंड इज टेलिंग द वेरियस ग्लैंड्स एंड एवरीबॉडी टू कैरी आउट देयर फंक्शन. और इसके अलावा क्या होता है कि नॉट ओनली दोज मास्टर ग्लैंड्स आर कैरिंग आउट, द फीडबैक दैट इज गेटिंग हियर इज इक्वली इम्पॉर्टेंट. तो हम लोग में मेंस्ट्रुएशन में क्या होता है कि हार्मोन्स बनाते हैं, दे बिगिन टू एक्ट ऑन द ओवरीज विच हैव बीन लाइंग इन अ डॉर्मेंट, रिलेटिवली डॉर्मेंट स्टेट. बॉडी में कोई भी हिस्सा बिल्कुल टोटली डॉर्मेंट तो होता ही नहीं है ना. इन अ रिलेटिवली डॉर्मेंट स्टेट उसके ऊपर एक्ट करने लगते हैं. द एग्स एंड द फॉलिकल्स विच आर ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट देयर, देन सम ऑफ देम अ ग्रुप इज रिक्रूटेड लिटरली and they begin to develop, they secrete a hormone which is known as the female or the estrogen. And it causes development of the eggs or the ova, as we say. when it reaches a certain level of hormone and at a certain level of development, something else pitches in, and it leads to, the rupture or the release of the egg. And thereafter, there is another set of hormones which comes in, which helps. And it's not these levels, they only change their levels. It's not that one completely vanishes.
Got it.
So these hormones then they begin to really create the atmosphere within the uterus and the ovaries and the hormones to be ready for the reception of a baby.
Right.
If it is fertilized, the ova is fertilized.
Right.
If there's no pregnancy, then obviously these hormones, they again, they depleted, they have completed the cycle, and therefore the endometrium which is shed off, which is not getting the support of these hormones, is shed off. And anything which is shed off from the body is going to cause some bleeding.
Right.
So that is what is menstruation.
Right.
And the same cycle begins to repeat itself. So these are also causing the hormonal changes.
Right.
Now what happens is, when in adolescence, the levels at which they are working, then the main reproductive area, and then the main menopause, these hormones and their balance towards each other begins to change.
Right.
So obviously it also leads to changes in the emotional and the psychological well-being.
Got it. Got it.
So because there is a constant fluctuation in a very synchronized way,
Right.
that is occurring, which leads to a normal menstrual cycle, which leads to a normal pregnancy and a conception of a pregnancy. And then once the woman is pregnant, then again a set of hormones and everything. The placenta also takes on the role of producing some hormones, and it supports the pregnancy. So I, despite my having been in this profession, I'd never ceased to wonder at the miracle that is the human being.
Absolutely. But do you think yoga can control or manage all these? Because there are these 3 P's that I have understood when it comes to healthcare, which is what is defining what the future of healthcare is going to be. One is that predictability. If you know what could happen to you, then it could lead you to do something, which is the second P, which is preventive. And we also understand that every human body is different, so there's a need for personalization.
Yes.
Right? Women's health is getting a priority also for various reasons, things like fertility. We are facing fertility issues, and we've realized that one of the 2 things that leads to infertility is the stress levels. And yoga is the only form of science that we are seeing today, which in its practice touches upon the physical being as well as the mental being. Right? How do you think yoga can, or the practice of yoga, help you prevent a situation of infertility despite women choosing to get married late, giving birth late, and then subject to various issues that they go through? Do you think yoga could prevent those challenges?
I think you've asked a question which, if I begin to answer in detail, would entail a whole session. However, I'll try to bring it to the very basics. As I just talked about, the hormones that we're talking about and the changes. Now, for fertility to occur, I will make one point here. You see, a girl, when she is conceived in her mother's womb, the first set, the girl or the boy for that matter, those cells which are going to be a part of the reproductive part, or the eggs or the sperms, are the first ones to be segregated.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And then, despite the fact that while she is in the womb, at the time the ovaries, I'll take the example of ovaries, they contain millions of ova. But despite the fact that the girl is not even born, they become atretic. So many of them are lost even in the intrauterine phase.
Right.
And at the time of birth, if I can give you just a rough figure, probably a girl is born with about only 10 lakh, starting from millions when she was conceived, to about only 10 lakhs or so. Some may have more, some may have less.
Got it.
Now, these numbers we can never increase. That is, God what has given you is given is given. It's only that they, as I said, they are lying in a dormant state, relatively dormant, because as I said, even in the intrauterine phase, they are becoming atretic and getting destroyed, so you only bond with a certain number.
Absolutely.
So the same thing is going to happen with that. And no matter whether it's yoga or whatever, we'll come to the benefits of yoga. Delayed child marriage and delayed childbearing is definitely leading to infertility, because the quality of the ova and the number of ova
Are depleting.
are depleting. And therefore, the fertility rate after 35 in the 30s begins to drop very dramatically. So, this is something. Apart from that, there are a lot of environmental hormonal disruptors, and we need to address those also as far as the infertility is concerned. Whether it is pollution, whether it is the adulteration in the food, whether it is the type of food we are consuming. And I'm glad that we are talking about yoga, because you see, yoga does not only talk as general people understand as a form of physical activity or exercise. That is the common concept which goes around everywhere.
Asanas.
Asanas, everybody talks about those. But beyond that, there is also something which we talk about, connecting with the mind.
Correct.
So actually, in fact, there was a talk which I gave, infertility and the mind, body and soul connection.
Right.
So it is very, very important, whatever we have, whatever stage we start, if we also add these parameters in a positive way, that is about the mind, the body, the soul. As I said, because the hormonal changes are occurring with the emotional and the psychological changes.
Right.
Now, once you begin to address those also, along with the physical changes and the subjective changes, then obviously it's going to give you a positive effect.
Absolutely. तो मेनोपॉज में क्या करना चाहिए? आई मीन योगा का पॉइंट, योगा का रोल क्या हो सकता है मेनोपॉज के अंदर? बिकॉज
मेनोपॉज,
मेंस्ट्रुएशन के ऊपर हम बहुत लोग बात करते हैं, बट मेनोपॉज पे बहुत ज़्यादा बात नहीं होती है.
उसका एक कारण भी है. मेनोपॉज जो है ना, इट इज़ द लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी ऑफ वुमेन हैज़ इंक्रीज्ड. If we talk about 30, 40 years ago, 45, 50 वगैरह ऐसे था, and now women are living up, healthy lives right up to the 70s and their 80s and, even longer. So a woman's life, 1/3 of her life is now going to be spent in the menopausal area.
Correct.
So the study about menopause is a relatively new one.
Yes.
However, having your question as to how yoga can help, there are two things. Once the woman has been finished with her active life, so-called active life, her, whether it's a professional life or whether even at the towards menopause, changes of the hormones again do not occur abruptly.
It's a gradual thing.
Again, it's gradual thing. So the menopause is when almost all the eggs have been depleted. They are not producing the female hormones as in the levels that are required for a menstruation. Then what happens, the eggs are not there, the lining of the uterus is not being formed properly, and so periods stop or menopause. So that is one defining feature that people identify menopause. However, the hormonal changes start 10 to 15 years earlier.
Wow.
So the average age of menopause in the Indian lady is 45 to 49, which is slightly lower than the average age globally, which is about average age is 51 years.
Right. Why does this happen so differently among the Indian women?
There is something, there is an ethnic variation known for all. Yes, genetic.
But
and
जब menopause होता है, what you are saying is that the periods stop, and that is the most impactful, a symptom to identify
that you are in the menopause.
Menopause has occurred. Second thing, what people talk of is hot flashes, right? Is there something that yoga can help in managing these conditions so that they don't create that havoc that lead to the mental or the emotional turmoil for a woman?
I think, we have to look at one thing here. You see, when you talk about the hormonal thing and everything, Ayurveda defines menopause not as a finite end. It defines it as a process of aging.
It's a phase.
It's a phase of aging.
Right.
So the hype has been created. Women, if you in your own family, your great grandmothers, etc., went through the menopause, did the whole family hear about it, that they were going through a lot of trouble because there was a family, you know. So everything, as I said, is interlinked.
Correct.
The mind, the social, the
Correct.
psychological, as well as the emotional aspect. So what we need to tell them that, you know, there will be a process of aging, no matter how much of the modern amenities you use to stay young, but the aging will still continue to occur. Outside you may begin to look younger, but the inside the body there is still aging as its own rate.
Yes.
But yoga, in its subjective or objective ways put together, will help women to understand. So first of all is, you know, giving them the knowledge. And once you give them the knowledge that this is a process of aging, I see menopausal ladies all the time. Some people have more hot flushes, some had low hot flushes. In between, there was this big study, studies which came up and which said that, okay, you take hormone replacement therapy and then you will be young forever. Then they found it had its own side effects. It went through, some people said it would keep your bones healthy, it will keep your heart healthy. And then there were some studies to contradict this. However, I would say that the current status is that it is to be not used as a stay forever young. You have severe symptoms, use it under medical supervision by a doctor for a certain period of time. You cannot carry it indefinitely. If you live to 100, then you're carrying on the hormone replacement. You have to face those realities. Absolutely. At some stage or the other. Absolutely. So I think it's only making the transition safer. And if we counsel them and stay active. You see, many women, when they get old, their walking gait, etc., is because they become more and more sedentary. So the way to keep your bones healthy and your muscles healthy, and most often people don't realize the importance of the muscles staying healthy. That is more important than the bones. के लिए तो आपने diet ले ली, सब कुछ ले लिया. Muscles के लिए तो एक activity ही चीज़ है. एंड इफ़ आई टॉक अबाउट जॉइंट्स वगैरह के बारे में, इफ़ यू लुक एट इट कि जॉइंट्स में आजकल सबके नी रिप्लेसमेंट वगैरह हो रहे हैं, सबको क्यों हो रहे हैं? आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग टू, और विमेन के ज़्यादा होते हैं एज कर, यानी कि मेन के नहीं होते, मेन के भी होते हैं, बट आई थिंक प्रॉबली इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द लाइफ स्टाइल ऑल्सो. वॉट हैपन्स इज दैट यू नीड द मसल्स टू रिमेन स्ट्रॉन्ग बिकॉज दे आर द वंस हु आर कीपिंग द जॉइंट्स इन प्लेस.
Got it.
एंड द मोमेंट द मसल्स आपके फ्लैसिड हो गए तो ये रगड़ खा करके फिर तो रगड़ हर तरह से. तो इसलिए मैंने कहा कि मेनोपॉज लेडीज़ को फ्रॉम द 30s, इसीलिए इट इज़ अ कंटिन्यूम ऑफ ट्रेनिंग.
सो आई थिंक यू नो व्हाट आई हियर यू से इज दैट 2-3 चीज़ें करनी है. वन इज आई थिंक यू नो कीपिंग yourself moving
yes
is imperative, you know, because
God says use your body or lose your body.
Absolutely. So keep your limbs moving so that your muscles are intact and strong. Second is, you know, when we are talking about benefit of yoga, what I understand from what I just heard is that remaining mentally strong is really important
factor.
Which means first phase is that accept. So अगर acceptance होगी तो आप उसके बारे में कुछ करेंगे, ठीक है ना? So first is to accept, and yoga can actually help you balance your mind so that you can take care of your physical aspect.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I think the benefit of yoga could be for women.
It transcends throughout life.
Absolutely.
For everybody, not only.
You know, and the biggest takeaway is that to understand, for women to understand that it is not an event. It is a phase that you've entered into. It started a couple of years ago, and it will carry on for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Right? And I think what yoga could do is that while you're aging, you gracefully age, accept it, do something about it, so that you could live happier and better for the rest of your life.
Women who are active, who remain active purposefully, have better longevity. And of course, you know, yoga also talks about a healthy diet.
Right.
So diet is very important. And in fact, you know, the Japanese scientists got a Nobel Prize for, you know, intermittent fasting, which has become so very popular.
Correct. Fashionable as well.
Fashionable as well. But, you know, we have had this fasting. Fast for every day.
We've been doing it for many years.
For many years. And not only that, Ayurveda and yoga, because it's also part of the whole thing. Ayurveda says that individualized treatment is more important.
Yes.
If I have a particular type of, as they call, कफ है कि प्रकृति हमारी क्या है, उस प्रकृति के अनुसार अगर हम डाइट और अपना रहन सहन रखेंगे तो हम हेल्दी रहेंगे।
इसी को अब हम रियलाइज करके पर्सनलाइजेशन की बात कर रहे हैं,
बिल्कुल,
राइट?
एंड द करंट कॉन्सेप्ट्स ऑफ मेडिकल केयर ऑल वर्ल्ड ग्लोबली, they are talking about person centered medicine
Absolutely.
and precision medicine.
Precision medicine.
And we have been talking about it
For
throughout
many years. Many years.
Yes.
I think it is time, in fact, in my earlier conversation also, what we were talking of is to take the traditional wisdom
Yes.
and modernize it so that the acceptance among the younger people is there.
Yes. Present it in a way
That it is
that the present generation understands. You see, I have to take all these examples to explain even to my patients, etc., because then they can, but it's like, if I talk to men about something, if we talk about a car, give them an example, they will probably understand it better.
Great, ma'am. Doctor, thank you so much for speaking to us and, enlightening us on the role of yoga, especially for women. And because these are two aspects which are, taken up very, very seriously, both in the personal life as well as now the corporate is recognizing this in terms of ensuring that they do whatever little bit that they could do for women's health.
Yes, very true. And also, it is very important. The woman is, no matter what you say, the woman is a person who shapes the character of a family.
Absolutely.
And she is the one who will inculcate all those habits. So we need to actually work on the women. And also, sometimes they are not aware ki they also have a role as leaders.
Correct.
Each woman is a leader.
Absolutely.
In their own sphere, in their own place. And if they are being trained and taught that this is what it is, they could probably...
Absolutely. They have to accept their leadership role. And they've always been the leader at home, and men acknowledge
that is where
that
I'm
the
talking about.
boss is the woman. Right? Great, ma'am. Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for speaking
Thank
to
you.
us, ma'am.